Alright guys, I'd like to talk about one thing which is a common question that I have. Alright Jim, we're catching bait as far as with a cast net. What do we use as far as what size cast net to catch what kind of bait that we're trying to catch? If you know me, we catch pilchards as far as year round. We have, when dolphin season comes, a lot of people use pilchards for dolphin. But what happens is, as far as with the nets, we have two different size nets. We have a 3/8 net and we have a 1/2 inch net. A lot of guys in a tackle shop, well Jim, what are you talking about when you talk about a 3/8 net and a 1/2 inch net? This is my 3/8 net. What does 3/8 mean, Jim? Well, what 3/8 means is the mesh of the net which most common tackle shops sell as far as over, to the normal everyday customers. You're catching pilchards. 3/8 is very small, and you have 1/2 inch, which is a little bit bigger. Now, what do we catch as far as in the 3/8 and the 1/2 inch net, and what is my preference? My preference is a 3/8 net is very, very small mesh, which catches small pilchards, which is good for all your marina pilchards as far as around the shelves, around the outside channel. Basically a very small pilchard, about a 1/2 inch long, and they don't get gilled as far as in the net. How many times have we thrown a net and basically had the net come back where it's actually Christmas tree with pilchards stuck inside, which are no good for anything because the mesh was too big? Well, that's what the 3/8 mesh net is. Now, I want to show you a 3/8 mesh net, which is very, very small as far as the mesh on my hand, which a pilchard the size of my finger could not go through the mesh of the net. Now, what happens is in the winter time, the pilchards are very small. In the springtime, why are they bigger? They're bigger because they're moving from the bay, they're going to the ocean to spawn, and the pilchards are much, much bigger. What we catch and I look forward to is March and April, where the pilchards are actually in 20 feet of water. Very difficult to catch because they're on the bottom and they see the net coming down. So what do I use for that? What I use is a 1/2 inch net. Now I want to show you, this is one of my favorite nets. This is the 1/2 inch mesh net. The net is actually, the spread is a little bit bigger, which you can see by my finger, that my finger could almost pass through. Well, why is a 1/2 inch mesh net better than a 3/8 net in deeper water? The net sinks much faster. The mesh is much bigger, allows the water to go through the net, and as the net spreads in 20 feet of water, the net goes down on the bait as far as on them, and you catch them a lot easier than a 3/8 net, because a 3/8 net would sink slower in deeper water. The pilchards would look at it and swim out from underneath the net. How many times have we thrown and seen, I threw over the school, Jim, I don't understand, because I threw over the school, the net went down, but I didn't catch any bait. Well, that's the difference between a slow sinking net and a big sinking net. This particular net is the most common use. This is a pilchard net and a ballyhoo net. Most of the guys in the Keys, Miami area, Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, all use a 1/2 inch net for ballyhoo, because the ballyhoo net is easier to throw as far as on the ballyhoo. The ballyhoo are much bigger than a pilchard, and this is what we use. This net's great for pilchards and ballyhoo. It's an all-around net, 1/2 inch mesh net. One more thing I'd like to bring up, folks, is basically what makes a net, as far as, and you hear it from the tackle shops, what makes a net, the weight of the net, so important. The weight of the net is so important, folks, because like I was explaining before, 3/8 net, smaller mesh, sinks a lot slower, needs a lot more lead in order for the net to sink. Now I'd like to explain a little bit about what makes a net work. This is called a lead line as far as on the bottom of the net. This is a 1/2 inch, what we call a 1/2 ounce ball lead, that is basically spaced every 4 inches as far as on the lead line. Now what happens is Caesar from Caesar Castnets actually makes these custom for me. I basically throw a 14-foot net, which this 3/8 net, if you can tell, is every 3 inches as far as where the balls are together. My 1/2 inch net, which I'd like to show you, is a little bit further. Okay, now why is that, Jim, that this net is, the balls of the lead are actually spread further? Because it's the weight of the net, and Caesar makes this for me. Now what happens is, as I throw this net, although this net is 3 inches, this net is 4 inches, the width of the net, as far as on the outside, remember me saying the 1/2 inch net sinks faster because the water forces itself through the net, which makes the net sink faster. It's the same 27 pounds versus 25 pounds as far as the nets, but this one sinks much faster because of the mesh of the net. Now, what I suggest, if you have back problems or different things and you're a novice as far as catching bait, what you need to do is you need to go out and buy a 10-foot or 10-foot net to start out with, a 12-foot when you get a little bit better, because what happens is the length of the net, figure this out, is 10 foot high, 20-foot circumference as far as the width of the lead line. Now that net particularly, as far as uses the same half-ounce ball leads, but weighs probably 15 to 16 pounds, which isn't a lot of weight, which is a very, very small net. You can practice with it a lot, you can throw it, you can, learn with it, and it works out good. Now, as you get better and better and better, of course, the bigger the net, the more bait you're going to catch. That's why you would graduate from a 10 to 12 to 14-foot net, because you get better and better and better. As you catch a little bit of bait with a 10-foot net, 20-foot circle, you get to a 12-foot net with a 24-foot circle. Of course, when you get able to throw that, you're going to be catching a lot more. A lot of you go out there, as far as that bug light, you see me catch bait. As I go out and catch bait, I'll throw on the bait and you go, Jim, there's 40 boats out there. How can you catch bait as far as pilchers when everybody else doesn't catch anything? Well, I'm going to explain that in the next video. Stand by and you'll learn a lot. Thank you.